All right, you guys, good afternoon and welcome. You have tuned in to Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I am your host, Kim, and today is the day that the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. It's a good day. It's a Sunday. I hope you had an opportunity to spend time with your family. Hope you had an opportunity to go to church, and of course, get yourself a word to get you rejuvenated for the week ahead. If you're our friend on Sister's Heart on Facebook, if you're my friend on my Facebook page, Kim Bruno-Little, then you already know our topic. Our topic is, concerning the Black Lives Matter movement that we see here as a nation. It's been around for about 3 years now, and I'm not necessarily talking or targeting that campaign itself, but I am asking the question today, do Black Lives matter to Blacks, specifically us as a people? So look, I'm going to take myself a really quick 30-second break. I will be right back. Again, this is Kim. You have tuned in to Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio, and we will be right back in 30 seconds, I promise. Welcome. Once again, you have tuned in to Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Kim, and today I'm asking the question with regards to Black lives. Do Black lives matter to Blacks? And I'm asking this question because we see, and I live in the Chicagoland area, just recently, a young man lost his life, at the hands of the Chicago police. I'm not here to debate with regards to the police officers and their tactics. I'm really not even here to put an emphasis on be it if it's right or be it if it's wrong, because right is right and wrong is wrong. However, I do want to create a level of awareness and a level of conversation around us as people. Do Black lives matter to us? When you think about our actions as people, when we think about our behaviors, what do we do to each other? How is it that we expect for people to take us serious and not to come across as hypocrites when it comes down to, police departments, white supremacy, those type of tactics being perpetrated against us? How do we expect people to take us serious when we don't even care? Now, I just want to kind of give a background with regards to the Black Lives Movement, because it really hasn't been around that long, you guys. This Black Lives Movement, it brought basically to the forefront the attention of on a national level, the killings of unarmed Black men at the hands, more specifically, of police, right? Because Black on Black crime has been around forever. But this Black Lives Matters movement, it brought to the forefront, that level of crime, and it brought it to a national level. When we think about what spirited, it really was the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case, and that's where it was birthed from. Like I said, just 3 years ago. But the BML was formed, and it was formed by 3 women. And what happened was, one of the founders, named Alicia Garza, she wrote on Facebook, she posted a love note, and it was a love note to Black people specifically. And what she penned in that is that, Our lives matter, Black lives matter. And then from there, Patrice Collier replied back with the hashtag Black Lives Matter. And then Opal Tamet added her support. And then that online campaign was born. It was just born from something so simple, a love note to Blacks in general, and then her quoting our lives matter, Black lives matter. And and I get it, we are all Black, and we all lives matter. We understand that, and that's not, again, it's not up for debate. We're not going to talk about it because we understand that the value proposition on Black lives really it's not there. We're from one generation to the next, we're constantly trying to have to fight our way to be seen as equals, to our peers, be it if it's for women, be it if it's for men, whatever the case may be. So those points, I'm not trying to debate them. I'm not trying to argue them, because it's reality, and it's realities that we deal with. We deal with them all day, every day, on your jobs, in your neighborhood, heaven forbid you move on up, as a George Jefferson saying, and you move into an area that may necessarily be predominantly one race, and it's not your race. You may have to prove yourself. You may wind up, coming outside and seeing on the side of your garage door, the N-word. So like I said, I don't want to debate that. I don't want to put an emphasis on that, but I do want to put an emphasis on the question of, do Black lives matter, specifically to us as Blacks? And what prompted it, and I was talking to the producer, and Earl actually printed, he posted, when we see our young Black men, in my opinion, the police don't need any help targeting us. They don't need any help gunning our young men down. They don't need help doing that. So when we see some young people putting themselves in situations that are questionable, what happens is, do we as the family, actually, we go to their defense and holler about how good they were? Because they probably were. But if their actions could cause my life to be put into jeopardy, my question is, does my Black life matter? When I saw the video, and it was a horrific video with what happened to that young man, again, it's not up for question or debate. He's lost his life over stealing a car, the police assuming that he had a gun. All of that, let them sort that out, let them figure that out. But when I thought about how he was driving through a community, and we're talking about kids are still out of school, all I kept seeing was like, Lord, just thank you that a child wasn't out there in the streets. Thank you that, a senior citizen wasn't trying to cross the street, because they could have lost their life senselessly because of someone else's actions. And we're talking about a young Black man's actions, and that his actions caused him to lose his own life, but we're still talking about someone else's life. And we see that so often happen. This was just maybe 2 years ago. It was a officer actually who lost his life on 87th and Lafayette, right off of the Dan Ryan Expressway. Some of you guys may remember it. It was about 1:30 in the morning. It was a Friday, and there was a police chase, and it was a van that was being driven by a woman, and she crashed into his car. This man had just left work. He has a wife. He had 2 children, 2 small children, and he lost his life because of someone else's actions. And this was a Black woman and who was driving the van, and this was a Black man who lost his life. When are we as people, I'm talking about Black people, are we going to value our own lives? Are we going to say to ourselves, what I'm doing, while it may affect me directly, it may affect someone indirectly. And I'm talking about someone specifically of my own race, of my own kind, my brother, my sister, because that's what we used to call each other right back in the days, brothers and sisters. It may affect my brother and my sister indirectly. And that's where I have a problem. And that's why I have the question right now on the table. Do we really value our own lives? Do we really value our own lives, the lives of the people that are in our communities, the lives of our mothers and our fathers? How many mothers are going to have to go and cry over their child losing their life? And for what? I thought about it, and I wrote it down, some couple of things that were actually, on my mind when I thought about, Black lives mattering, to us. Do Black lives only matter, like I said, when it's being perpetrated by the police officers, or does it, or should it matter when it's being perpetrated by anyone, anybody that jeopardizes our level of security, anyone that jeopardizes my right as a Black woman to be able to go into my house and not feel as though I'm going to be victimized because someone's going to break into my house within my own community? Does my life matter then? When you think about black on black crime, and like I said, I'm not trying to compare the two because Black lives do matter. I'm not trying to compare what police officers do to us versus what we do to ourselves. I'm specifically wanting to look at us as a people. And when I say us as a people, my little notes are just blaring. I'm not trying to, again, compare the two. I'm just asking a legitimate question. When you build your house, you start with the foundation first. So absolutely, we want to look at the president. Guess what? We elected him. So he is on some level held at a higher standard of accountability for the things that are going on in our communities. When we think about the governor, absolutely, we elected him. So he should be held at a higher standard with regards to the things that are going on in our community. When we look at the mayor, we elected him. We should be literally holding him to a higher standard. The police superintendent, whomever, the teachers, we can hold everybody at a higher level of standard. But what about in our house? Because that's our foundation. My foundation is not when I walk outside of my house. It's within my home. What is going on in our homes? Why is there such a disconnect that we don't want to hold our own very children, mothers, boys that we gave birth to, girls that we gave birth to, we carried them in our womb for 9 months. We don't want to hold our own children to a higher standard. We don't want to govern our children. We want to sit here and pretend like the responsibility is on someone else. But honey, your child's life should matter, and it should matter to you. It should matter so much to you that if you saw your child breaking the law, you should turn your child in. If you saw your son or daughter doing something that you know could cause them their lives at the hands of a white officer, you yourself should turn your child in. Don't give your child, your son or your daughter, the opportunity to get killed out there in the streets by a white officer, but let alone by someone of their own race, when you know that they're not doing right. So, we can get it. It's our history. I understand it. It's our history. I understand that, when you think about how angry people get, the police are there to serve and protect us, right? So I get it. I understand it. But I really want to ask the question. I really want somebody to answer it for me. Do Black lives matter to Blacks to the degree that our feelings about the police officers are superseded by our feelings about each other? Because when you think about that little boy that lost his life last summer, who had all hopes and dreams of being somebody, he was somebody's baby. And let me tell you something, that was not far from my house. That was maybe about 5-10 minutes from my house if I'm driving and get caught by a light. I didn't see the uproar, and don't get me wrong, going downtown, you can do that all day long, but I'm talking about in the communities that are being overridden by Black on Black crime. Are we trying to take over those communities? Because going down to City Hall and going down this downtown period, the crimes on Black crimes are not being perpetrated there. It's perpetrated in our communities, and we have to take back our communities. We have to show people that Black lives do matter to us as Blacks. We have to show that. Now, say, how can you actually talk about that, Kim? What do you know about it? And I was sharing this with Earl as my producer. I have an uncle, so I can speak on this. I have an uncle that was murdered in the mid 80s by Chicago police officers. My cousins, they lost their father because police officers showed up at his door and literally killed the man. So I have a brother that was murdered at the hands of Black men, so I can talk about it. My mother was murdered by a Black woman, so I can talk about it. I have another uncle, God rest his soul, who murdered a man. And I was young back then, don't really remember all the details, but he murdered a man and literally fled the state so that he wouldn't be held accountable for that. So when I say, do Black lives matter to Blacks, I'm coming from a perspective of, listen, this is my past, this is my history. And do I think that lives matter? Absolutely, because I'm determined for my sons, because I have 2 sons. I'm determined that their lives will matter, and their lives will matter more to me than it will ever, any movement, any white officer, any black officer, their lives will matter more to me. And I'm going to be I'm going to be that door for them. I'm going to be that voice for them. And my son, my oldest is 25. And if I see him out of line and out of order, I assure you that his life means so much to me that I'm going to work to correct him, because his life does matter. I'm going to take myself a really quick break, you guys. I will be right back. I'm asking the question today on Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. Do Black Lives Matter to Blacks? We'll be right back. All right, you guys, once again, thank you very much for tuning in to Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I am your host, Kim, and I'm asking the question today, do Black Lives Matter to Blacks? And when we went to a break, it was a really good question that was put on the table by the young lady back there in the hat with regards to, if it was your son or your daughter, would you turn them in? So if you're my friend on Facebook, I really would like you to give me those comments. I want to be able to look at them when I go on a break and maybe even talk about it, because I want to know. Me personally, I would turn my son in. I just would. I love my sons, but I would turn them in. And that takes me over here now to my next topic, or not the next topic, but the next point with regards to, do Black Lives Matter? And then I had a couple of points. These are real life scenarios, you guys. You know, does it matter when a woman is carjacked? She's carjacked at gunpoint. She's just trying to get into her house. She's trying to park her car in her garage, and here she is being victimized. And she's going to have this with her for the rest of her life. Does her life matter? That's a pause. I'm still waiting, Era, for you to get the crickets. Another point, okay? Does it matter when a young businessman is brutally beaten at his place of business, right? He's not on the streets. He's not trying to sell drugs. He's not robbing from nobody. He's not killing anybody, but he's a African-American. He's a black man trying to do the right thing for his family, and he is brutally beaten to death by black men, by black offenders. Why? Because they wanted to rob him. Does his life matter? Next point. Does it matter when a senior citizen, listen to this, you guys, senior citizen, little old lady, is carjacked again at gunpoint? At gunpoint because she's at a red light on her way to the grocery store. Senior citizen, somebody's grandmama, at gunpoint, carjacked. Does her, and this is in broad daylight, might I add, does her life matter? And the carjacking was perpetrated by two African-American assailants. Does her life matter? Next point. Does it matter that our children and our women, of course, don't even feel safe in their own communities, walking down the street, going to the grocery store, because they're afraid that they're going to be a victim of someone stealing their cell phones, their sneakers, or their clothes? Does it matter? I'm asking the question, does Black Lives matter to Blacks? I got another point. It doesn't matter that a young woman, listen to this, right? Because we just seen this. We've seen this in Chicago. Does it matter that a young woman can't even ride a public transportation without having her throat slashed? Does it matter to us as Blacks? This is real life. This is not something that I'm making up. This is real. And we're seeing this in the news. Does her life matter? Does it matter, watch this, that young men are laying dead in the streets like dogs, being killed by other young Black men? Do Black lives matter to Blacks? And I would like to say, of course they do. No one's crazy. Of course Black lives, but we somewhere along the way, and I really believe that is due to systematic separation, we have forgotten to stick together. And we've forgotten to stick together by any means necessary. You now got it's what that snitches get stitches, right? You don't say nothing. Don't say nothing to my child. Who are you to talk to my child? Who are you to say anything to my child? When I was going to school, I never forget it. I was in 5th grade. Miss Bradfield beat me. She got her little waddle and she whipped me. Why? Because in her mind, I was being smart mouth. It was no, my aunt and uncle showed up at the school and then jumped on Miss Bradfield. No, when I got home, they beat me again. What happened to that level of ownership and accountability for children? Whatever happened to the village? What happened to prayer in the schools? What happened to those things? Now they want to do everything but pray in the schools. What happened to when we as people, before there was keeping up with the Kardashians, it was keeping up with the Joneses. We wanted to keep up with the Joneses, so we were more hungry for the things that had nothing to do with family and foundation. We were thirsty for those things that had nothing to do with the family and foundation. As if I can go to work, get my kids the latest Jordans, then I'm okay and they're going to be okay. Whatever happened to us being at the core of who we are as people, which was helping everybody win? All of us are winning. All of us are going to eat at the table. And if someone's out of order, if someone's doing something that's out of characteristic for us as a people, then guess what? Everybody came together and it was everybody's problem. Now you got women dating men who wear their jeans around their bottoms. Like, I'm trying to ask the question again, ladies, do Black lives really matter? Or do we no longer have a standard that anything goes in our community? Anything goes. You can be a mugger, you can be a robber, you can be a rapist, you can be a killer. It doesn't matter. You can be the biggest drug dealer. It doesn't matter. There's no standard. So we're just going to let everybody do what they want to do. And then when it comes down to us, because this is how we want to live. But then if one of our children, heaven forbid, is murdered by the police, now we're in an uproar. That's hypocrisy, people. It's hypocrisy at its finest. If you're going to have a standard, keep a standard. You can't pick and choose who kills Blacks. You just can't. Blacks shouldn't be doing it. White shouldn't be. It shouldn't be happening. If you got to defend yourself, that's different. But because I don't like you, now I'm just going to take your life? Help me understand, how does a Black life matter when it's that easy to take a Black life? You have 2 young ladies, and someone was telling me about this, actually I think it was 4 young ladies, 3 o'clock in the morning, they're coming out of a club, get into a fight, one's now dead, and the other one faces scarred for life because she's got slash marks all over her face. You're trying to convince me that Black lives matter? Whatever happened to, girl, it's not that serious. Get your Vaseline and square up. No, now we got to kill each other. Like, literally, our hearts are so cold and our hearts are so stiff that now it makes more sense to kill somebody than to just go heads up with somebody. Because that's what we used to do. We used to schedule 3 o'clock in the park. Hello, somebody. Yeah, me, you, and it's going down at 3 o'clock in the park. It was a heads up fight. And guess what? We fought, we made up, and we were back friends within the hour. That's how it used to look. Because guess what? That's when Black lives actually mattered. Parents understood our kids are going to have issues. Our kids are going to have beef, as they like to say it. But they taught us how to handle it. They taught us how to, okay, fine, if you want to go out there and fight, you guys are going to have a fair fight and you're going to be back friends. They taught us how to do that in a manner that, guess what, your life still mattered and my life still mattered, and I lived to go home. Now you got parents with their kids going down there to the school, and the parents are giving the kids the weapon. We just had that happen. Now you tell me again, does Black lives only matter to Blacks when it's white on Black crime? I just really want to know, because we all ought to be angry on such a level that when we think about Black on Black crime, the call to do something with regards to Black Lives Matter, it ought to resonate within us. I promise you, it ought to resonate with us that within 24 hours of a Black man being killed by another Black man, we ought to have somebody questioned down there being held accountable for that. That's how important it ought to be when you think about it happening in our communities. It shouldn't go weeks. It shouldn't go days. It should not be an unsolved mystery. No, it's in our communities. You're trying to tell me that we don't know who did it? It should not happen like that. There ought to be some level, realistically, there ought to be some level of compassion for us as Blacks, one to another, that we will no longer tolerate within our own communities. We can't look for Rom. I said this before. Rom doesn't care about us. Rom is not trying to come down there to the south side of Chicago. Look at the statistics, you guys. He's not going to try to come over there and try to help you police it. He can say whatever he wants to say, but he's just not going to do that. And for the life of me, you know, when we think about our history and when we think about, again, what happens as far as these men of authority, talking about officers that are in our lives, right? Because that's our history. What about the history of genocide? What about that history? I mean, what are we really doing, again, to ourselves as Blacks, as African Americans, whatever we want to associate ourselves with? Look, I'm going to take myself a really quick break. Again, I'm asking the question, you know, do Black lives matter to Blacks? My name is Kim. I'm your host. We stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I will be right back, okay?
Jesus
Yes, once again, you've tuned in to Sisters Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I am your host, Kim, and I was asking the question today, not for the purposes or the sake of trying to compare the two, because I know that you can't compare them. Do Black Lives Matter to Blacks, okay? And I gave in the last segment, a lot of real examples of crimes being perpetrated against Blacks, be it if it's women, Black men, be it if it's children, across the board, our senior citizens. They're just, again, when we think about what's going on in our own communities, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic it's just out of proportion. And I want to see that same, as Wanda was saying in our break. Wanda is, she's the assistant director. Where's our pride? Where's our pride in what we do and what we believe for ourselves, for our communities? I remember watching on MSNBC, and they were talking about how home ownership gives people such a level of pride that when there's trash on the streets, that people will go out there and pick up the trash. Now, I'm one of those type of people. I will go out and I will pick up the trash if it's on the block. I really will do that. I'd rather let the trash build up in my car in the trash little bag that I have than to throw it out on the streets. But that really isn't for everybody, because I know homeowners that literally throw their garbage out on the streets. So where is our pride, you guys? Where is our own ownership and accountability? The change is not going to occur on the outside in. The change is going to occur on the inside out. We can't wait for no one to come do it for us. Black fathers, take authority over your sons. Help them to be men. And if you are a father's father, whatever the level, whatever the generation, don't let your seed be left behind. Let your legacy mean something. Mothers, be mothers. It's great that you kept your figure up. It's great that you look good and people compare you to your daughter, but you're not. Your mindset, it ought to be on a whole nother level. The only woman that I know that's not raising their daughter, some people say, oh, it's a mastermind, are the Kardashians. You got the mama constantly with plastic surgery trying to look like her daughters. And guess what? If that's the kind of lifestyle you want, then go for it. But even then, take some pride in how you're carrying yourself. We have to do this, and we have to do this for us, because nobody is going to do it for us. I remember when my youngest son, he was 12. Prior to him, reaching the age, I thought I was going to kill him myself. He was difficult. He was difficult. He wasn't in gangs or anything like that, but he was just difficult. He was constantly challenging the system, and I'm talking about in school, public school. So you have to be able to look at your child. You have to be able to register that there is an issue. And I'm talking about single mothers here, because I was single. I was trying to raise my 2 children after my divorce, within my home, not as a single parent, because we were definitely co-parenting, but I was in the house by myself. There was not a man in the house. And I had to recognize, when I saw that my son was, he was balking at authority, that we had an issue. And I told him, you can respect me all day long in the house. Your greatest level of respect for me is when it's demonstrated outside of the home. Because again, it's from the inside out, people. So when he would get in trouble at school and then come home and try to justify, well, Mom, I don't talk to you like that. Well, Mom, I don't do that. Well, you might as well. Because if you're going to the school and you're doing it to the teachers, you're just as much as doing it to me, because you're not respecting the rules and the boundaries that I have in place for you. So what I did as a parent, because it was more about my son, and I'm talking about asking the question, do Black Lives Matter to Black? My son's life meant more to me than, one, that child support check that I got. My ex-husband has a really good job, so I got a really nice check every 2 weeks from my son, okay? But my son was more to me than that child support check, and then he meant more to me than whatever issues that I had with his daddy that caused our relationship to be severed. His life mattered more to me. So when he was 12 and he got out of school that summer, I promised him he was going to go live with his daddy. His dad thought I wasn't serious. You're going to get rid of your baby, and drop this check? Yes. And we made it legal. Here's your son. We went downtown. We got the child support order severed, and I started paying that man child support because my son's life mattered more to me than a check. My son's life, meaning having his father in his life, meant more to me than me seeing him in the house. Now he's all of 6'2", in the house, acting like he's respecting my rules, and then cutting up and acting like a fool in the street. Parents, you know your children. You know them. I don't care how much respect they show you in the home. If they're cutting up in the streets and you're getting calls from the school, your child is a ticking time bomb. Get them help. And I was fortunate enough to have an ex-husband who, I promise you, on all accounts, he's a good man. Our marriage just didn't work. So I had to see beyond me and see my son because his life mattered. And I assure you, this was just last year when he bulked up at his dad, because he's all of 6'2". When he bulked up at his dad like he was a grown man and he's only 16, his daddy put him down, put the paws on him. And let me tell you something. Anybody that tells you that you can't do that, let them raise your kids, because he had to do what he had to do. That's his son, that's his, and he put him back in order, he put him back in place because his son's life meant more to him than any phone call from any knock on my door. I'm going to handle my business. I'm an upstanding citizen. We have to take pride in the fact that these are our children. These are our seeds. And I'm talking about our children's children. What are we going to have our legacy look like when we think that I can just turn the eye to what your child is doing, or I can turn the eye to what my child is doing, more importantly, and then think for 1 second that it's not going to have an impact on my grandchildren? It's going to have an impact on everybody. Everybody. And until we make it better, until we actively work as people, actively work to make our situations better in our communities, it's just not going to happen until we do it. I don't want watch this. I don't want nobody coming in trying to tell me how to govern my community. Who knows our community better than us? And our community is those that are around us. It's our children, our neighbors' children. Why do we have to have anybody come in here and govern that? That's like trying to get the National Guard out here to police our neighborhoods. Really? Do we really need? And you know, and if we really do need that, then we are sadder than we actually know. We are worse than we actually know if we have to have somebody else, be it the National Guard or whoever, to come in because it has gotten that out of control. So where are these kids living? These 15, 16-year-olds that are on the streets gunning down people, where are they living? These 6-year-olds that are stealing cars, where are they living? You mean to tell me that you didn't notice that car sitting in your driveway? You know, and you know that your son doesn't have a job? What? That's a 911 all day. I'm not going to have no parts of that. And I won't, no, stop it. Because I'd rather you be in jail, I'm telling you this guy's on the street, I'd rather you be in jail than to be dead on the streets. I'd rather that be your story. I'm sorry, but I'd rather have that. Why? Because your life matters to me. And we have to have that level of pride that our children, our people, their lives matter to us. And it matters more to us than trying to keep up with the Joneses or the Kardashians, which is the new thing. You know, it should matter more than the next outfit that I'm going to wear to the party on Saturday. No. What's going on in your families? What's going on with your children? What is going on in your household? That's what needs to be, that's what needs to take precedent over anything, above anything. And if that's not on your agenda, then I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Black lives don't matter. If that's not, you don't wake up with that, like, how can I make things better for my children, my children's children, then I hate to be the one to tell you that, then it really doesn't matter to you. Because if it only brings out a feeling of being appalled when it's a white life that takes a Black life, and not when you hear about the lady next door, you know, being beat, being robbed, when you hear about the grandmother being robbed, if that doesn't anger you, if that doesn't make you want to go snap someone's head off their body and drive them out to the police station yourself, if that doesn't get you to that level, then does it really matter to you? That's my question. I'm going to take myself a quick break. I'll be right back. Once again, this is Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Kim, and I'm asking the question, do Black lives matter to Blacks? thank you for tuning in to Sisters Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. I am your host, Kim, and the question for today is, do Black Lives matter to Blacks? Really, have said a whole lot. Some passionate stuff, because realistically, as I said, I have two sons. Man, I love them. I love them with all my heart. I have nephews. I have nieces. I have a little brother who's a young man. My father had late in years. He's the oldest son. That really my heart is so concerned about when we think about Black Lives Mattering. We understand the movement, right? And I promise you, I applaud anyone and everyone that's in the movement, that's in the struggle, that's working hard for there to be justice, literally, for us as Blacks. When you think about being gunned down by police officers, I understand all of that, but I really want us to reevaluate how we handle those type of situations versus what we do when we talk about young men killing one another for a block. Whose block it is, who's going to be able to sell drugs in that neighborhood, the things that they're killing one another over, carjacking, stealing people's cars, breaking into homes, terrorizing communities, that we ought to be outraged. We really ought to be outraged because of that. And of this black on black crime. There was a time, realistically, when there was a campaign, I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Wanda, where black on black crime was a campaign. And people were working really diligently to create awareness around the fact that, listen, you guys, we're killing each other. We're creating genocide within our own communities, and it's not a good look. But again, like I said in the first segment, we come across as hypocrites. And what I mean by hypocrites is, it's okay, and that's really what we're saying. When there's no outrage, what we're saying is it's okay for our young Black boys to lay in the street like dogs when they're being gunned down by other Blacks. When we turn a blind eye to it, that's not my child, then it's okay. If we're not demanding that the press come down there and listen to us, if we're not walking through the communities, if we're not doing all that we can to let that child matter, right? Let that child mean something other than when it's a police officer doing it. If we're not having that same balance, then we're coming across as hypocrites. And we can't expect for anyone, any race, to take up our cause and to hear us, and be so passionate about them hearing us when we ourselves are not taking that same level of intensity in our situations. We have to do that. We have to speak up. If you know that your child is out there, you have to speak up. If you don't do nothing but bust, well, I can't tell you that. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to govern ourselves, and we have to police ourselves. We have to do it because they're not going to do it for us. And they've showed us that they're not going to do it for us. And things may get better, and I'm not saying that it won't. They may get better, but it's going to be from the inside first out. It's going to literally take for us to knock down the whole building, you guys, and what we think is our communities, tear it all down. The infrastructure is broken, and repair it, but repair the foundation first. That's within your home. That's within your children's lives, because Black lives ought to matter to us as Blacks. So listen, I'm going to wrap up that portion of the show. I want to say really quickly that if you are tuned in to us via the website, IntellectualRadio.com, via iHeartRadio, or even with the iHeartRadio app, stay tuned, because Laughing Out Loud is actually in the house right now. So she has a show put together for you guys. So definitely I'm putting a plug in for her. She comes on, I think it's from 4 to 3. So stay tuned. Don't disconnect. Listen to her. 4 to 5. I'm the 3 to 4, okay? And then, of course, if you had an opportunity to tune into the show last week, where, again, you guys, I was asking the question of where were they at, so if you have a chance, go back to intellectualradio.com so you can actually pull it from the archives. If you're my friend on Facebook, you can also view it there. It's so time out for, again, hypocrisy across the board with us as African Americans. We really have to get ourselves together because there's so many people that are watching us, and we have so much influence and we have so much power, and we're really not using it. We're too busy, and hey, look, you all know I wear weave, but we're too busy trying to figure out what our next hairdo is going to look like, what our next outfit's going to be, how many expensive purses can I get. We're focused on the wrong things, and what's falling behind and what's lacking, you guys, realistically, is our children and our children, the generation behind us. There's a gap, and we have to find a way to bridge that gap, but we're not going to do that trying to be something that we're not, and being hypocrites all at the same time. So listen, again, my name is Kim. It's Kim Bruno, and I'm your host of Sister's Heart, where we stream live on IntellectualRadio.com via iHeartRadio. Listen, you guys, we're going to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary next Sunday. Yes, yes, I got to say it like that. Yes, going to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary next Sunday. I got some really good friends coming in. We are going to have fun, you guys. And there was something that was posted. If you are a friend, if you're not, go to Intellectual Radio on Facebook. And there was something that was posted by Katie that we're going to be talking about. And it's a man that died, and his wife and his girlfriend both posted an obituary in the newspaper. Somebody come please look at that foolishness. We're going to be talking about that next week, you guys. It's foolishness at its finest. So again, I'm your host, Kim. And again, stay tuned for Laughing Out Loud with Nikki. It has been my pleasure. I love you. God bless. And remember, your heart holds the key. See you next week. That's how God made us. That's how God made us. That's how He created us.